Hi, I'm Dr. Amber Comer, and today I'm here to share with you a prospective intervention to increase goals of care conversations with hospitalized patients suffering severe stroke. The objective of this project was to determine the feasibility and acceptability of using a goals of care conversation template located in the electronic medical record for patients suffering severe stroke. So what did we do? We did a prospective mixed methods pre-post intervention that we conducted for 8 weeks in a large academic hospital. So before we could even get to the intervention, we had to take a lot of steps to plan. So the first thing we did is a goals of care conversation template was created by members of the palliative care team and was approved through various hospital system committees and placed into the electronic medical record. And yes, it basically took an act of Congress to accomplish this. The template was easy to access and could be easily imported into a routine progress note. The goals of care template offered topics that would be beneficial if discussed, as well as prompts for how to start conversations to elicit information from patients. Once the goals of care template was placed in the electronic medical record, training was developed by an end-of-life committee on how to have a meaningful goals of care conversation. Members of the study team were involved in the creation of the goals of care template, as well as in the creation of the educational training. Once we had the goals of care template in the EMR and the online training completed, a live training session was held in which neurologists were shown the goals of care training videos, and they received live instruction and examples on how to use the goals of care template. Neurologists were told that they did not have to use the entire template on each patient, but rather they were encouraged to select the part or parts that were most applicable to each stroke patient. Once neurologists were trained, the intervention began. The intervention consisted of members of the study team sending text prompts to the neurology team for patients who are admitted to the hospital with a severe stroke, which we defined as an NIHSS of 10 or greater. The neurology team received a text with the patient's MRN and the following statement. This patient may benefit from a goals of care conversation. Please use the goals of care template to guide your conversation and for documentation. The neurology team was followed during the course of the patient's hospitalization, and if a goals of care conversation had not been documented in the EMR, reminder text prompts were sent on hospital days 5 and 8. A chart review was conducted to determine the number of patients who had a documented goals of care conversation both prior to and after the intervention. At the conclusion of the intervention, neurologists were invited to participate in a 20-minute interview regarding their experience. So, what did we find? A total of 82 patients met inclusion criteria during the study period. The pre-intervention group included 43 patients, and the post-intervention group included 39 patients. There were no statistically significant differences in demographic and clinical characteristics between patient cohorts. As for the goals of care template, no neurologists used the goals of care template during the intervention period. Additionally, the text prompts did not increase goals of care conversations documented within notes that were not placed in the template. Yes, we were disappointed also. So during our post-intervention interviews with neurologists, we asked, why? What happened? Why didn't you use the template? And what they indicated was a lack of time, confusion, and responsibility about who was supposed to engage in goals of care conversations. For example, perhaps another service engaged in the conversation first. So what does this mean? It means that, at least in this example, prompts to encourage the use of a goals of care template neither increase the use of the template or other documented goals of care conversations in the EMR. So of course, further research is needed to determine ways to increase documented goals of care conversations within the EMR and how to entice physicians to have these conversations. I would like to thank my study team, the neurology service, and the palliative care service, without whom the study would not be possible. I would also like to thank all of you for your time and interest, and I look forward to answering all of your questions during the live Q&A.
Very warm welcome to this poster session. I'm David Oliver. I'm a retired consultant in palliative medicine and a professor at the University of Kent in the UK. And it's my privilege to chair this session. If you have questions, do use the section on the right of your screen to put in a question. You'll be very welcome. Amber, thank you for that presentation. What would you do differently, or how would you try to make a bigger effect if you were going to do this again?
That's a really great question. So what we would want to do differently is actually get neurologists to use the goals of care template. And I think that the way that we went about it wasn't feasible and it wasn't acceptable. And so I would go back and I would tweak the way that we tried to get them to engage. And I am currently working on studies and interventions where we're doing that based on the feedback that we've received from this study, as well as other studies. And we received some really helpful and positive feedback that the neurologists wanted to know how to consult palliative care, and that they just weren't sure when was appropriate to do that and when it was appropriate for them to hold their own goals of care conversations. And in regards to goals of care conversations, some of the feedback we elicited during the qualitative component suggested that the neurologists would like more training or would like to know how they themselves can handle some of those goals of care conversations, but they just weren't very comfortable.
Because it did seem if they did undertake them, it was a real help.
Yes, exactly. And so that's what was so interesting about this study is we had the quantitative data with the qualitative data. So we knew that the intervention didn't work, but we also know why it didn't work. And I think that's really, really imperative for going forward and forming new interventions.
And finally, if you were going to give just one message, who would it be to, and what would you give as the message?
I think the message would be to neurologists, and it would be that based on a review of the literature, as well as my own work, we know that goals of care conversations are really, really important. And I know that they're really difficult and they're hard. And I would say that we need to work together, neurology with palliative care, to find ways that we can improve having goals of care conversations earlier and more often with patients. Because I really think that they can have a really positive and beneficial impact on these patients. And based on my own work, I know that everyone feels that it's important. I just know that there's this struggle with how do we do this? And so my message would be, we need to work together to figure out how to do this so that we can help patients, because everyone wants to do this. So thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Amber, for a very good poster.
Thank you.